everyone. Welcome to this new episode of our Student Spotlight series, where we are able to showcase some of the work our students have been doing. I'm Charlotte, one of the outreach coordinators here at CCIR, and it's our pleasure today to have Bernice with us, who did our one-on-one mentorship. So, firstly, Bernice, can you just give us a little introduction? So, tell us where you're from, what year you are in school, or your age, and then what made you seek out CCIR.
So I'm from Hong Kong and I'm a year 12 student in an international school. And I seeked out CCIR because I've been really interested into science research and I really like reading different science journals as well as papers. And I always dreamed of writing my own science paper and also doing my own research. So I think CCIR was the perfect opportunity for me.
Nice. What kind of science topics are you interested in?
So I'm really interested in neurology as well as medicine and just different ways that science was able to apply to real world. Like how my topic is about like Alzheimer's, so I kind of like read a lot about degenerative diseases as well as just looking at how science is applied in the real world and how it really changes people's lives.
Nice. So now we'll discuss kind of as an introduction. So give us an introduction to what your course was about. So you could tell us your mentor, a little bit about them, and then a general information on what you guys delved into.
My mentor was from the University of Cambridge, and he's Dr. Carciner Lombarte. And through our one-on-one sessions, we discussed about different neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and Huntington's disease. And at the end, we decided on doing a research on Alzheimer's disease, partly because of how it's like more widely known, and also because there's more resources available. So it's easier for me to do my research as well as to dive into the topic more deeply.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And what interests you specifically into neurodegenerative diseases?
I'm really into definitely into Alzheimer's diseases because of how I read about Huntington, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, and I feel like Alzheimer's is the most commonly known and also the one that people struggle with the most, I guess, because a lot of the generation, like a lot of the population has it. And so what I find is that in Alzheimer's disease, there's long-term and short-term kind of stages. And a lot of people think that it's like a continuum because it progressively gets worse. But it's actually not the case from what my finding is. And that I find that in late stages, there's actually really different biological processes that occurs during late stage and early stage, which prompted me to think that perhaps that nowadays drugs, they're always targeting late stage and not really early stage. And perhaps like science research could focus on early stage so that we can identify earlier and help people before it gets too late.
That's very interesting. Did you have experience either in school or in individual learning with learning about neurodegenerative diseases or Alzheimer's specifically before you started CCIR?
I volunteered in a hospital before, and I remember it was actually a really funny experience, but there's this one guy who has Alzheimer's disease, and he kind of forgot that he had to take medicine. And so then he came in and he was just holding a bunch of medicines and he didn't know what he was doing with it. And I think it really stuck with me because I thought that like I felt really bad for him. And I also see like the real world impact of what Alzheimer's could do to one person. And I'm very lucky that no one in my family ever really struggled with Alzheimer's disease. But seeing him really struck me and it like stayed with me until CCIR, and that's why I chose Alzheimer's disease.
Nice. Yeah, it definitely is quite a kind of a jarring thing to recognize. Um, so we'll discuss your specific research topics. I know you got into your findings a little bit, but just to backtrack a bit, can you walk us through so what your research question was and then your research methods and kind of how you came up with the plan for your research?
So my research topic official title is Divergent Transcript Transcriptational Signatures Define Early and Late Stages in an Alzheimer's Disease Mouse Model. And I started this topic thinking that I really want to do a primary research. And my mentor gave me two suggestions. One is that I could do gene ontology as well as expression. The other method was to do MRI. And I actually chose gene because before that, I did go to a summer school where I learned about genes and mitosis and meiosis, and I thought it was really interesting. So I really wanted to dive into that topic. And so from the start, my mentor really guided me into think about different diseases, as I talked about before. So I started reading about Huntington, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's specifically. And after researching deep into it, I find that Alzheimer's really piqued my interest, which is why I stuck with it. And so what I did was I went online to find any existing databases because I can't do my own lab research and I can't just find a bunch of mice and just dissect them. And so I definitely found some research, some data online that's available for me to use. And that part actually took me quite a long time because it was really difficult to find the right data set. But after finding the right data set, I would say like everything else was a bit easier, except for the coding part for MATLAB because I have to do data analysis and I've never used MATLAB before. I've only had experience with Python, and so I think it's quite different in that sense. And my mentor really helped me with understanding the coding and different ways to help me to do gene gene analysis through it. And then so then that after that we did a lot of analysis of the data as well as what we found through it and what we could infer from the data because I think science is all about hypothesizing and really understanding what you found that like reflects what would could be done future in order to be a really good science paper and really contribute to the scientific community. So that's kind of what we did afterwards. And that part was really interesting because that's the part where I really got to understand how Alzheimer's work and how my data could like potentially contribute greatly to the science community. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I know one of the questions that a lot of students have when they're coming into the program is how am I supposed to conduct research when it's a remote program? So that's a really great kind of tip for students is you can always find a data set that exists already and then run your own analysis. So you're still coming up with new contributions, just using existing data sets. So you discussed it a little bit before, but can we go back and just kind of repeat your findings and let us know, was there anything that you weren't expecting to see that was maybe surprising to you or challenging?
So my first finding is that there's definitely no overlap between early stage Alzheimer's as well as late stage Alzheimer's. There's very distinct biological states, which suggests that Alzheimer's disease actually isn't a very simple linear worsening problem that we see every day. Instead, early Alzheimer's disease and late Alzheimer's disease actually have really distinct biological states and different molecular mechanisms. And the second finding is that there's specific early stage biomarkers. So I identified some specific genes that's uniquely regulated in early stage. This includes the two genes that's most prevalent, which is GSTO2 and as well as EPM2A. And these two genes are very upregulated in early stage and does not appear in late stage. And I think that it could be very useful in identifying early stage Alzheimer's disease going forward.
Interesting. You said that was your first finding. Did you have other findings you wanted to discuss?
I would say the first two was definitely how there's no overlap, and the second one is the biomarkers. And the
Okay.
last one that I think was also kind of interesting was how an early stage categorized by alteration, alterations in synaptic signaling, which confirms that there's loss of connections very early on. And for late stage, it's categorized by broad metabolic processes. And very interestingly, the smell pathway was actually activated in the late stage. And this could be because just the smell pathway itself always have neurons that is known to differentiate a lot, which might be why it's picked up and not really due to Alzheimer's, I guess.
Interesting. And then in terms of usually at the end of papers, sometimes researchers will make suggestions for future research or for kind of solutions to your findings. Did you do any of that? Do you have an idea of maybe if, let's say, you were taking this on the PhD level or at the university level, what would you do to further the research?
I think for me, I would definitely shift my focus on early Alzheimer's disease because my research hugely emphasized on early Alzheimer's disease. And through my research, I've proved that early Alzheimer's disease and late Alzheimer's disease are very different. So I think it's worth my time and attention to put on early Alzheimer's disease. And I think I would definitely start with diagnostic tools instead of how to solve it, because I think identifying it earlier is also really important in terms of communicating to patients as well as telling them like their family that they have Alzheimer's disease and just making sure they charge their time, even if we can't do anything about it. So I think that it's definitely identifying Alzheimer's disease earlier first before going into helping them and really just any therapeutic tools. So if I were to do it in PhD level, I think I would start with identifying early Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, that's great. And then my last question about your specific research paper, and then we'll go into discussing just your general experience with CCIR. But the last question is, have you started the publication process at all? Are you hoping to publish, and what does that look like so far?
So I've been wanting to publish my paper, and I did reach out to the team that CCIR has for publishing, and they gave me a list of journals as well as conferences that I could go to. And currently, I want to publish to the STEM Fellowship Journal, and I'm still working on it. And because right now it's my half term and I have holiday, so I'm definitely gonna try and get it published or at least submitted to the journal in these within these few days, and so that hopefully it'll go well and I can get it published.
Yeah, that would be really great. So now we're gonna discuss your experience with CCIR. So firstly, can you tell us what your experience was like generally in the program doing a high-level research project like this as a high school student?
I think it's very valuable as well as really memorable because I don't think anybody really gets this opportunity, and I think CCRO is a really good place for this opportunity. I really felt like the whole entire experience was very geared to me and what I want to do, especially for a one-on-one program. And I think my mentor really gave me so much support in terms of flexibility of time management and when to have sessions and how to really help me to finish my paper on time, as well as any help I need for coding, as well as understanding materials.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the benefits of the one-on-one program is that it's a completely bespoke program. So like as the student, you really are the driver of what you're learning, what you're researching, and then the mentor is just there to help guide you on that journey. What was this research process and project like compared to other papers or projects that you've done in school before?
I think this one is definitely closer to what I think a university or a PhD student would work like instead of a high school student. Because in school, I definitely have school journals and papers or be published as a school publication, but it's nothing like CCRO. It's all just kind of researching online and peer review. But CCRO, I really got to do my own primary research, which I didn't expect, c- considering it's a remote program. Is I just really never expected it, and I think that it's a really good experience for me, and I never thought that I could do it in high school. I always thought I had to wait until university. So I think it was a really, really great experience.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and brings me to my next point of we often really enjoy that we are able to provide these very niche courses, both in our Future Scholars program and in our one-on-one mentorship, where usually even your first 2 years of undergrad, you are kind of in these more general biology 101, chemistry 101. So it's really great that you're able to really hone in on your specific interests in these programs. So what was it like being able to have access to such a niche course with a mentor that has so much expertise in the area, and especially like with Alzheimer's, it's so clinically relevant to what, the researchers of today are working on currently. So what was it like?
I think it was super, super cool working with a professor in from the University of Cambridge. I would have never imagined me as a high schooler being 17 years old, having the ability to work with someone who is so good in their field. And I think it was a really good experience just learning from them and just knowing, just seeing their passion just really makes me go, whoa. And so I think that was really, really cool. And I think that the whole entire experience itself, which is really unique and something that I don't think I could have gotten it somewhere else. And I think that having this platform really helped me to understand my own core interests because I think coming into it, I didn't really know exactly what I really liked about science or like neurodegenerative diseases in general. But I think it really honed into my ability to understand different papers as well as to know my passion.
Nice. And then just a few more questions for you. The first one, do you think this course has given you any insights into your future? Has it maybe informed or shaped how you think of your path moving forward, either in university or the career?
I think this course really did solidify my interest in science and specifically I think medicine because I think that science itself is very interesting, but I think more than that is that how you could apply it to real world and how you could really help people with science. And I think that's the whole entire point of science is to be able to apply it into real life situations. And I think through this course, I really got to know what Alzheimer's is, the science behind or like the biological process of why there's Alzheimer's. But more than that is that I was able to know how it could be potentially used as a way to help people to navigate Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And then my last question for you, what would you say to someone who asked you what the value of doing a project or a program like this is, especially for a high school student?
I would say that I think it's a once in a lifetime thing because you'll never be 17 again. And so if you're 17, so you might as well do it. And so it's kind of something that you don't really get to experience until maybe a PhD level, yet you get to experience it maybe 5 or 6 years earlier. And I think that's super, super valuable if you have the chance to, because you will never get to work with someone who is from Cambridge or like from these top universities that has been in their field for maybe 10 or 20 years. And as a high school student, I think this really helps you to understand what it's like to be in that field and really understand if you have a passion for it. And so then in the future, you won't go into the wrong direction or go into wrong steps because you already know it from such a young age.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think research, especially, is one of those things that you really won't know if you like it until you're actively doing it. And to be able to figure out whether it's something that you like even before you start university is such a great benefit for high school students. So that brings us to the end of our spotlight interview. Thank you so much for chatting to me, and congratulations again on your nomination to our series.
Thank you.